What is up, my friends? Myself and Mr. David Lynch are back to have a little look over last night's game and, of course, talk about the biggest incident surrounding Liverpool Football Club over the last few days. David, hope you enjoyed the game last night, my man. It's a perfect start for Arne in the Champions League and a great start to life as Liverpool coach.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, really. I mean, again, I just keep going back to the fact that, even when the fixture list comes out in the Premier League and you start to think that looks pretty handy, a decent looking start on paper, but, the idea that Liverpool would be winning as many games as they have in this first 12 is just crazy. And I spoke about this on my channel actually yesterday after the match, in that 11 wins out of 12, Liverpool have never, ever started a season that well, ever, in their entire history. Jurgen Klopp never managed that. Bill Shankly, Bob Paisley, you think of any single, great Liverpool manager down the years, none of them have managed to win 11 out of the first 12 games, and Arne Slot has achieved that. And also he's achieved that in his first season in charge. And, you can talk about inheriting a good situation, and he absolutely did from Jurgen Klopp. But that is still staggering, really, the speed with which he's got his system and his style of play embedded into the squad. And that despite a really disruptive preseason with all the internationals as well, and only sort of one signing for the squad right now as well. So it's an unbelievable achievement, and yeah, you shouldn't forget that. We should all recognise just how good this has been, and some big tests coming up. But yeah, incredible, really, that they've made it to 11 wins out of 12, and as you say, 3 from 3 out of the Champions League after last night, and they fully deserved it as well.
So we have the 11 from 12, like you've spoken about, the 3 out of 3 in the Champions League. But there's also the first 6 wins as Liverpool away manager in a row, the first manager ever to do that. And you and I have spoken since you've come on the channel over the summer. It's been very strange not to see a draw yet, David. 12 games in, and we just keep winning games. And 6 from 6 away from home, 11 from 12 all in, and 3 from 3 in the Champions League. We expected it to be a pretty good fit based on the style of football that Arne Slot was bringing in. And we know Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes were certainly doing their background research to make sure that we did get this good crossover into the Arne Slot era. But like you said, I don't think even the most optimistic of Liverpool scout or executive could have expected it to be quite as seamless as it has been.
Yeah, I just thought there were going to be more defeats up to now, in terms of just more. When the Nottingham Forest defeat happened, I kind of wasn't unbelievably shocked. I thought, look, this is a new manager. It takes time for the players to get used to it. And I thought, after that Nottingham Forest one, there's probably going to be a couple more of these soon, really, before we get past the international breaks, because it is just difficult to embed your style straight away. And for the players, with them having been so used to Jurgen Klopp. But it's almost like he's taken all the good things about Jurgen Klopp football and just added in his own spin, added that newfound kind of control and defensive solidity, but kept all the things about the attack and all the positives. And yeah, just really not what I expected at all. I thought this year was almost going to be kind of a write-off in terms of challenging for trophies. I thought Liverpool comfortable top four, but you just look at those first 12 games and you think, well, they could be in contention for everything. They're performing at the level of a Premier League title contender, and certainly a contender for the Champions League as well. So still obviously a long way to go, and you don't want to get carried away. You don't want to end up with egg on your face. But just it's been much better than I ever expected, and the hope will be now that Liverpool can continue that. And I think Arne Slot has shown what's most encouraging is kind of winning games in different ways, but also tweaks in the middle of games, spotting when there are problems and finding new ways through them. So he's a really smart, really good coach. So huge credit to Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards for picking him as the man to come in after Jurgen Klopp, because it's working perfectly at the moment.
I had a bit of a eureka moment last night when Leipzig had the ball in the net and it was ruled out for offside. So we've seen a lot of very tight offside decisions that Liverpool have gone in our favour. Correct decisions. I'm not trying to say these are even subjective, but most people were thinking, oh, another let off there, or that was close. I want to just give praise to the defensive line, because I noticed it last night looking across. It is so good, David, that defensive line. You're talking half a yard here. And now this did begin under Jurgen Klopp, where we were playing a high defensive line. And basically, from what I could gather, is they were trusting VAR to get it right as long as the players got it right. And last night, just looking at Virgil and Ibrahim Kanate and that defensive line, it really is a thing of beauty to watch.
Yeah, it's you're absolutely right to point that out, because people do think, and I think some people came away from yesterday's game feeling, oh well, they put us under pressure at times, but the reality is you look at the chances and the XG of those chances, and it wasn't really that high. It was that there was a couple of offside moments that made you feel a bit, nervous and feel like Liverpool were under the pressure. But the reality is that, as you point out, is a skill. It is a skill to keep that line. And the fact is that Liverpool's defensive line, it's very difficult to breach them without making the run early, or the one where he taps it in from the cross. He has to go early or he's never making that. And again, Liverpool just hold solid. They let him go because they know he's off the shoulder and he's going into an offside position. So it just shows that, again, it's just another aspect of defending that they're really excelling at the moment. And I think the players are much better at getting those out of the mind and not thinking we've conceded there, we got lucky. They are thinking, great line, well done, lads. And they just seem really calm about it, which is fantastic, and rightly so, because they're just doing a great job of keeping that line really tight and trying to get pressure on the ball. And when they don't, usually it's because the opposition has had to go early, and then obviously the flag goes up and the goals are ruled out.
One moment that caught my eye last night that was celebrated like a goal was Ryan Gravenberch tracking back and blocking one of the crosses. Is there anything this lad can't do now, David? Because he just looks like he's brimming with confidence, and that was celebrated like a goal in that Liverpool penalty area. It was remarkable to see it yesterday. I mean, he deserves all the credit that comes his way.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny as well because he looked a little embarrassed when he caught Virgil's eye after it, almost shy about the fact that he was grabbing hold of him and shaking him. But it was that's the sort of stuff again that we've seen all season from him so far. And we knew and we saw flashes, a lot of flashes in his first season, which I think actually kind of went under the radar. I thought he was pretty good in his first season, but I didn't expect this from him in terms of what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball. I thought, he can get more games as a number 8. I think we can see a bit more of him this season, but I didn't think in this deep line too that he would be such a defensive monster. I mean, his anticipation is fantastic. It's, he's up there with any defensive midfielder in terms of that. He's getting across to make blocks or just little interceptions and using those long legs that he's got. He's really firm in the tackle as well, comes out of 50-50s really well. So, he's just a brilliant all-round defensive midfielder, which I just don't think any of us really saw coming this season. And a big factor last night in why Liverpool win, but a big factor in why they've been winning all season, because he's just been absolutely outstanding.
Caoimhín Kelleher was a Standard Chartered man of the match last night. He was also the Anfield Agenda man of the match. Our viewers voted for him at the end of the game. Just a quick word, David, again on the ability to step up like he has, to keep concentration like he does, and to just keep reminding us how fortunate we are, the depth of goalkeeping talent we have at the football club.
Yeah, well, it's a funny one, really. I didn't personally pick him as my man of the match on the basis that he actually kind of didn't have a busy game, did he? Really, the quality of the shots that Leipzig were getting away were very kind of low XG, really, chances. So he wasn't really busy. But I think that is, it is almost what is the great goalkeepers do, isn't it? He had a couple of saves to make that were big moments. The Seshko chance where it drops in the box and he has to get down really smartly to save that. And then I think it's Simons takes the shot that gets a huge deflection. And that looks like it's about to nestle in the top corner, and he somehow gets there and knocks it over the bar. It's just fantastic goalkeeping. And as I say, it's just, that is what, that's what Alisson does most of the time, or, when we've not had seasons where we're putting him under pressure, is that he's just there to make the big saves in the moments, and then otherwise very quiet and just using his feet and doing every other aspect of the game that he's so good at. So just again, Liverpool really, really fortunate to have two goalkeepers of that quality. And again, I always throw back to the idea that I just can't believe that someone didn't come in for him. And in fact, actually watching Chelsea against Liverpool last weekend, I thought, wow, why didn't you want to pay 40 million to sign Caoimhín Kelleher? He would solve all their problems that they've got between the sticks in terms of shot stopping, quality on the ball. He should be playing for a club of that level. I mean, I would like to see him go to Chelsea, but it amazes me really that clubs haven't come in for him. Liverpool don't miss a beat when he's there instead of Alisson, which he can't give any sort of higher praise than that, really.
It's going to be very interesting to see what the plan is next summer for the goalkeeping department, because you've got 3 top-class keepers there with Mamardashvili, Kelleher, Alisson, a very able backup in Miroslav Jaros, who's only making his way as well. It'll be interesting to see if we lose 1, 2 or none of those goalkeepers next summer. I mean, have you any indication of what way the club are thinking around the goalkeeping department next summer?
I still lean towards the idea that Kelleher will go. I'd be really surprised. I mean, the fact he continues to perform at this level, surely clubs are not mad enough to keep watching this and not thinking that it's worth paying at least 25 million to get him out of Liverpool. So surely that happens next season and he gets the move that he absolutely deserves coming up. And I think that is the expectation at Liverpool as well. In terms of what happens beyond that, a lot up in the air, really. I mean, Liverpool have got a lot of options in terms of how this plays out. So I think the expectation on their side is that Kelleher will leave next summer. But beyond that, they've got the choice to send Mamardashvili out on loan again if Alisson doesn't want to go to Saudi yet, and they're happy with that situation. They've got the opportunity to keep Alisson at the club and say maybe you go to Saudi the year after that and bring Mamardashvili in so he has a year where he can acclimatise and be the number two and sort of compete for that role. And we know as well that the number two at Liverpool, when it's Alisson, will probably get a lot of minutes, not only in the Cups, but in terms of injuries as well. So that is a possibility for them that they're not ruling out at the moment. Or, like I say, if Mamardashvili does go out on a loan again and there's another year there, then that allows maybe Jarosz to step up and be the number two for a season. That's an option that Liverpool, again, wouldn't rule out because they think he's a fantastic goalkeeper as well. So what you can say, the only thing that is certain is that Liverpool are pretty well covered and they will be very well covered going into next season, regardless of how things pan out. And that was the whole idea behind signing Mamardashvili, really, is to make sure that no matter who, if Kelleher left or whatever, or if Alisson was going to leave, that Liverpool didn't get, caught out in that position and they were never going to be short. And that's one thing you can pretty much guarantee now, is that they're going to have two very good goalkeepers on the books next season, which is a fantastic thing to be able to say when there are doubts over two of your current first-team goalkeepers.
Absolutely. I echo everything you said there. It's been a fantastic evolution, of the goalkeeping department, from John Achterberg to bringing in Taffarel to bringing in the young keepers that they have. Obviously, we've got keepers out on loan like Pitaluga as well. Very interesting times, definitely. Before we move on from last night's game, I want to just talk about two refereeing incidents really quickly to get your take on them. We had the Alexis McAllister yellow card, which, quite frankly, David, I'm still scratching my head on. And we also then had the lack of a penalty being awarded, or even referred to the monitor for the referee when Darwin Núñez was clipped in the penalty area. Your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, just shambolic decisions, really. I'd said after the Chelsea game, actually, is that I thought the referee in that game was really kind of poor in his general management of the game, but I actually think he got the big decisions wrong. And I think this game was kind of the reverse of that, in that the general management of the game wasn't too bad at all, but I thought the big decisions were absolutely wrong. I mean, the penalty's kind of inexplicable, really. I mean, you could argue that in the Premier League, with their high bar and the wish not to re-referee games, that you kind of wouldn't have been that shocked that Núñez didn't get that. But in UEFA competitions, I am absolutely stunned that they didn't watch that back and see it's a clear clip on him, and certainly enough to give a pen. And in fact, if the referee didn't think that was a penalty, then give a booking in that situation. Then if you're trying to suggest that Darwin Núñez has dived in, amazing, particularly because he gives that incredible decision before it in terms of booking McAllister for a dive, which again, replays showed quite clearly that was it. He got really harshly clipped in the knees. It was a powerful foul, amazing, really. I can't think of many examples really of players being booked for dives outside the box. That very rarely seems to happen. And I think if you're a referee given that, you have to be 100% sure that that's what's happened. So yeah, and that kind of, that hurt Liverpool really, because, if they get the penalty, that's game over. I think, they wouldn't have even had any stress in that game whatsoever. And the yellow card kind of hamstrung Alexis McAllister throughout the game, really, because it's so early when he gets it. So, really two decisions that harmed Liverpool a little bit, really. But thankfully, they came through anyway. But yeah, for all the talk that the referees are better in Europe, I think yesterday kind of showed that you can still get an absolute stinker and some poor decisions. And I think both of those really were.
I don't even understand the rationale of why the ref thought McAllister would go to ground. He was clean through. He'd rolled the ball across his body. He was clean through. There's just no point in him going to ground at that stage. And with regard to the Darwin incident, do you know what went through my head, David? If I'm being really honest, Gary Neville. Gary Neville went through my head there with his Liverpool players in the dark arts and Liverpool players simulating. He was talking about Salah and he was talking about Darwin. I just thought, Gary, come on, Gary. Now you're getting in referees' heads, Gary. And that's what narratives get built on, though. That's the whole point of this conversation. Is it might be 1 in every 100, but if you build a narrative around players going to ground easily and diving, it does somewhat stick, David.
Well, Liverpool could do without somebody else other than Salah. Just, he never gets anything really. I mean, you can do whatever you want to Mo Salah inside or outside the box, and you won't get booked. You won't give up a foul in most occasions. So Liverpool could do without another one of the players getting that sort of reputation. So I hope people don't start to suggest that Darwin Núñez is a diver, because that would give him a bit more of a headache as well. But yeah, I do think, reputation. But again, with the Salah one is crazy to me, because I don't think he's ever really been a diver. I don't really remember any situations where you think he's gone down too easily, particularly because he's so powerful as well and so able to sort of shove off players, even if they're much bigger than him. So yeah, never really understood where that sort of narrative has emerged from, and it's really unfair on him, really, because he's a quality player who should win more penalties than he does. So as I say, Liverpool could do without other players in the squad getting that reputation as well.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of strange narratives, Miguel Delaney wrote a piece in the Independent speaking about the Saudi Arabian ownership of Newcastle United, maybe taking stock of their position and wanting to buy a bigger club. Now, we said that Chelsea and Liverpool have been spoken about in this regard. Can you shed any light on this, David?
Yeah, I'd be kind of surprised. I mean, the one thing I took as well from what I saw of what Miguel wrote, so not to do down his reporting in any way. I think his language was very sort of soft touch with his language, in terms of, it's something that perhaps is thought to be being explored, and I know personally as a journalist, and I've wrote things in that way before, it's when you kind of hearing the odd thing on the grapevine, but nothing too concrete at the moment. So, I'd be surprised really. And I also think, I think they'd really struggle to buy Liverpool, in that I think there would be a bit of a fuss kicked up and people opposing it and not wanting Liverpool to become that. So I think Liverpool would be a difficult club to buy from that perspective. And also, with Newcastle, it's early days for them yet. They've had a season where they got in the Champions League. They're building. They're always going to be in the top half now, and it's all about building on that. So it's early days in terms of that project. So I'm not quite sure they've got bored with that yet. And as I say, I think, a long way away from buying Liverpool, or FSG being willing to sanction a sale as well, which is a big part of it. So I'm not sure anything's being lined up on that, and it'd be a big surprise, I'd say, if anything moved on that front soon. And I don't really think that interest like that would be massively welcomed by the club either.
So a couple of things on that whole situation. One, I guess it's a reminder as well that be careful what you wish for to some extent, because we've got Newcastle, who are owned by the Saudi Arabian investment fund or the royal family. Well, they tried to say it isn't, but over in court in New York, they said otherwise. It's a reminder that if they can't get what they want as quickly as they want, they seemingly are willing to look around and maybe want to move on that quickly. On top of that, I agree with what you said about the fit not being right for Liverpool. But one part of it that I did want to touch on with you was, do you think that the owners at this point would be open to a sale or taking on even more minority ownership stake from somebody who, let's say, like a Liberty Media type, who could add value to the business in other ways? They've always spoken about being willing to take on a minor stakeholder if they felt it added value to the business overall, or an expertise level to the business that maybe they haven't got. Have you heard anything in that regard? Is there a magic number that they would listen to, or are they digging their heels in? Like John W. Henry has said, when's the last time we sold something? We're in expansion mode.
Yeah, that's it. And I tend to sort of take John Henry on his word on that front. I mean, it was quite clear that they were exploring a sale relatively recently, wasn't it? And, that was ongoing for quite a while, where they were looking there. And then in the end, they got that minority investment from Dynasty Equity. And then it's kind of gone quiet since then. And I just think, I'd be surprised if they're massively pushing for a sale now. I think it destabilised things at Liverpool for a little while as well. I don't think that was helpful background noise, and I think there's been a real refocus since then. Obviously, Jurgen leaving, they've completely changed how things are built, bringing Michael Edwards back, changing that structure. Now, in fact, looking for a second football club as well to add to the, they kind of had a look at Bordeaux, didn't they, and got close and in talks there, but didn't go much further than that.
Let's be honest. Now, they heard Andy Carroll was going to sign, and they just said, "No, we're not having this."
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, they don't want to make the same mistake twice. But yeah, I the fact that they're doing all that, and the fact they've been able to convince Michael Edwards to come back and this be what he focuses on, to pull the rug from under him that quickly by saying, we're going to make a big sale, I'd be really, really surprised. And maybe they would welcome further minority investment, but I think if it was to come from somewhere like Saudi, I don't think they would have a huge interest in minority investment unless it was with a sort of roadmap laid out to being the majority owner eventually. So again, I think that would be pushed against by the support, to be honest. But so I would be surprised. I don't really expect that Liverpool or FSG are massively considering a sale at the moment. I think they're refocused on the project and expanding into kind of a multi-club model. That for me will be the next step.
I often wonder, and obviously I've never spoken to anybody from FSG, but I've often wonder if they feel a little bit differently after all this time. When they bought the club, and I think we spoke about this before we went live, they bought it very much with a viewpoint of believing that FFP was going to be enforced in Europe and that they could find a way to be, I don't know a better phrase than this, so I apologise, the smartest guys in the room. And in some ways, they've shown that if there was a level playing field, or if Manchester City wasn't in existence, as an example, that plan might have worked. Do you have any sympathies for them having bought the club and then football landscape moving so quickly towards a far more high level of expenditure, like we've seen from Chelsea, Manchester City, and others? Do you think that maybe FSG not regret buying the club, but maybe wouldn't have bought it if they believed that FFP was going to be unenforceable? And that's the phrase I would use here, David. It feels to me like every time UEFA, FIFA, somebody sanctions, the Court of Arbitration for Sport seemingly just rolls over and reduces these bans, kind of undermining the punishment in the first place.
Well, I think they'll be watching what happens in Manchester City with great interest. I mean, the fact is that everything they've done, there would have been no questions about it. There would have been, they would have been heralded basically as the best ownership of any football club in Europe, I would say, if they'd had a couple more Premier League titles to their name, which could have easily happened, and we could be about to find out that they should have had those titles as well. And also got to a couple of Champions League finals where they came up against, unfortunately, the biggest club in the world in Real Madrid. So, it could have been a few more trophies in the cabinet, really, on the back of FSG. And then you would have said, had no questions whatsoever about their ownership, and maybe we'll see. And I think they'll maybe think that, if Man City do get punished, then, the PSR is working and that it's going to create that more level playing field and that Liverpool will be in a position to keep winning, hopefully, going forward. So that will kind of be the aim and belief that is there. And I think that's a big part of why they've changed the structure now and brought in Michael Edwards, as I say, in the belief that, they can win in this way, and it's not, City aren't just able to do whatever they want and Liverpool can catch them. So I think they believe that. And in terms of, on your point of, would there be any regrets there? Maybe I would say absolutely not, just purely on the basis that they paid around 300 million to buy Liverpool, and it's worth around 4.5 billion now, is it? So in terms of investment, that is an unbelievable return, and they are investors, and so I doubt they've got many regrets at all about that. It's worked out pretty nicely for them.
Yeah, I think we'd all be happy if our houses went up that level of increase during that short period of time. So yeah, I've no doubt about that side of it. And do you know what? I've been critical of expenditure from them, but I've never begrudged them that, because they got the club to the point where they got that valuation. And I always said no issues with them selling off down the line and taking that money, because they brought the club to the position where it was worth that much. So interesting times ahead, and we'll certainly keep a close eye on that Manchester City hearing. I wanted to just ask you about a report that suggested Virgil van Dijk was going to be offered a 1+1 deal by the football club, or the club were leaning to a 1+1 deal. Obviously, 1 year guaranteed, 1 year extension. I have to say, if that's the case, and again, I'm going to ask if you've heard anything on it, I'd be incredibly surprised, because I feel like he is a standout candidate for a no-brainer, straight 2 year deal. And 1 year to me would just be kicking the can down the road a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I'd be surprised if it's a 1 with a 1 option, and I'd be interested to see what side that option is on as well in the contract, if that, or within the report, whether that's player side or club side. For me, I think there's just too strong an argument for Virgil to be 2 years minimum, with maybe then a 1 year option included in that on the club side. And I don't think, it's not particularly attractive to Virgil to have that uncertainty of a 1+1 either, because, he knows better than anyone that you're one ACL injury away from being, cut, if you have just got that 1 year. So he'll want more security than that. So my expectation on Virgil is 2 years as a minimum, as a starting point. I think there's even a case it could be above that, but we'll have to see. But I think 2 years minimum really will be the agreement with him.
And I think 2 years is a no-brainer at this point because of the body of work that he's still putting together. I think we took a few straw polls on these on our channel, and 2 years plus an option of one from the club was the favoured from our audience on Mohamed Salah and Virgil. So have you heard anything around Mohamed Salah, or maybe Trent? There was a report that Trent's father was part of these negotiations, obviously a massive Liverpool fan, and that things are a little bit more optimistic this week on maybe Trent staying at Liverpool. Have you anything around Virgil, or excuse me, around Mohamed Salah or Trent?
Yeah, so on Trent, I mean, I've never really, and I think I've said this repeatedly, really never kind of bought into any of the pessimism around it. I think, Liverpool, they accept that they're not in an ideal situation, but there's a few mitigating factors there. But it's, there's a real desire to just get it sorted and hand him the big contract that he deserves, and with 5 or 6 years, or extend the length of it, not to give another 4-year contract, which puts him in a sticky situation again. So, I think Liverpool have not had an indication from their side that Trent is thinking about Real Madrid or has got any desire to snub Liverpool to go there. And I think some of the pessimism comes from some of the reports that emerge from Spain, but you have to take those definitely with a pinch of salt, I would say, because sometimes Madrid can use the media as a tactic, can't they, in a negotiating tool. So just I'd always be wary of that. So I'd say still massive optimism on Liverpool's side that they'll get this sorted out. It just does take time, and these are negotiations and the back and forth, and it can take a little while, but still hopeful that one will get sorted. And Mohamed Salah, I keep saying it's the trickiest one of the three, but again, if there's the willingness to compromise on Salah's side around length, then I think there's hope that can be done as well. But we just have to see on that one. I think Van Dijk the easiest to do, Trent the absolute priority, and then Mo Salah maybe just comes in third place really of the three of them because of the wage he's on. But we'll have to see how that plays out.
I hope Trent's keeping an eye on the Spanish media and their treatment of his mate Jude Bellingham as well, because he's coming in for a little bit this season of treatment, and it just goes to show if you aren't performing at the very, very top level in a Madrid shirt week in and week out, it can turn very, very quickly. So yeah, certainly I hope Trent's keeping an eye on that one. I wanted to just quickly ask you, David, if we have any updates around the Conor Bradley situation, which was shrouded in a little bit of mystery. The Diogo Jota scan results, perhaps, do we know if it is bruising? And I think we heard Arne Slot say the word bruising. He didn't give a time frame, though. And finally, obviously, Chiesa. There's this mad report today that Liverpool are considering a loan in January, which to me, David, makes absolutely zero sense. So, again, those three of you, anything on them?
Yeah, I'd be amazed if Chiesa goes anywhere on loan. I mean, Slot admitted that he's struggling a little bit to adapt to the intensity of the Premier League, and they kind of wish he'd had a pre-season with them. But again, the idea that you'd somehow get him ready for the intensity of English football by sending him back on loan to Italy doesn't kind of make sense to me. So I can't see anything happening with that. I spoke to someone last week, actually, or was it earlier this week? Sorry. About Chiesa, and they kind of seems like he's not too far away. It's just he's getting these little niggles in training and it's causing him issues, but they seem kind of optimistic about it. Similar optimism I was hearing about Jota. I mean, whether that's enough to get him back for Arsenal, I mean, that would be fantastic if he could be an option there, but we'll have to see. And it's good that he's talking about bruising rather than broken ribs or anything like that, because I think that would be a few weeks and a real problem. He could really do with stopping having other footballers landing on him, by the way. That seems to be kind of a habit. In a way he picks up injuries. And Conor Bradley, it's a strange one. I've not had any sort of steer on that one, really. I did see a report in the Echo that suggested maybe it's going to be a few weeks. I'm not entirely sure exactly what his problem is. I mean, hopefully that's not the case, and hopefully he's back sooner than that. But it seemed to be like he was facing something a little bit more on the long-term side in comparison to those other two. So we'll have to see on that. I don't personally have any information on that one.
Appreciate that. And just to finish up, David, a quick couple of seconds thoughts on the game against Arsenal the weekend, maybe finishing up with a score prediction.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. I think because Arsenal have got the injury problems that they've got, although by the way, I expect Bukayo Saka to start despite what Arteta's saying. I don't believe him at all. So I think he will be back, but Odegaard looking like he'll be out, and he certainly wouldn't start the game. Saliba obviously out. Calafiori, I'd be amazed if he's available after that twist of his knee. So, they've got a few problems in terms of injuries, but I think what worries me slightly is that just kind of, their resolve a little bit and gives them a very clear idea of what they're going to do, which is basically, okay, we're not at our best, we can't go toe to toe, let's absolutely ruin the game and turn it into something horrible and turn it into a bit of a war, really. So I think they can make it tight and horrible. They really are good at defending, aren't they? So that's it's going to be a kind of tricky test for Liverpool on that front. But
would you take a point?
I don't think a point would be bad, considering that Liverpool have lost there in recent years and it's proven a tough place to go. It would be an improvement to take a point there. I mean, they are more than capable of winning it from what we've seen so far this season. But, I'm generally optimistic. I think Liverpool are capable of winning it. I think if they do, it will be a ridiculously tight game. I think it's going to be a 1-0 or a 2-0 where you nick one right at the end on the counter to kind of seal it. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think Liverpool are going to go there and absolutely smash them. But I am an optimistic guy. I think so. I'm gonna lean towards that 2-0. Maybe Liverpool nick one early and then get one on the break right at the death that seals the 2-0 and the away end goes mad.
I'll take that right now, David. I would take that right now. And do you know what? It's just great to be involved in these massive games, isn't it? To have Liverpool back up at that end of the table, competing for titles. I know it is early in the season, but this is already a very big game. So, David, as we always do to finish up, just a quick question about what you've got coming up on your channel and, of course, on your Substack.
Yeah, just the usual on YouTube and Substack in terms of the match coverage and some deep dives and stuff on Substack. I mean, I've kind of changed the way I did do things on Substack actually a little bit. So more of the kind of deep stuff, and I try and give you something that you don't know every time you read something on there. So hopefully that's working out. People seem to be liking it. So if you want to check that out, it's davidlynchlfc.co.uk.
Well, David, luckily for you, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know. So I'm going to be certainly reading up on those articles and trying to find out those little bits of information. Thank you, as always, for your time, David. I'm sure we'll catch up after the Arsenal game. To everybody watching, thank you. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, thank you as well. We'll be back soon. Enjoy the rest of your week, and all roads lead to the Emirates at the weekend of that massive game against Arsenal. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.